right, I am back. I have been in a reading slump for like 2 months. I've barely read anything. I've gone from reading like 10 books a month to 1 or 2 if I'm lucky. Ridiculous. But I'm back. And I've read a bunch of Frankenstein retellings, and I'm so happy I have because I got like a new favorite in this genre. Not my favorite book of all time, but definitely going to be a favorite of the year. All right, so Frankenstein is one of my favorite classic horror stories, Rosemary's Baby still being #1, but Frankenstein is a very close second. It has sadly been too long since I've read it, and I'm definitely due for a reread, but Mary Shelley created an incredible story back in 1818, and I'm so happy. The cat is very excited. So, no, leave the figures alone. Leave them alone. All right, we're going to go in the order that I read these stories. The first going to be our hideous progeny, and a wonderful story, but the slowest slow burn I've ever read, and I don't know if this was just because like it was at the beginning of my reading slump or if it caused my reading slump. I don't know which. I have no genuine complaints. So this story is about two paleontologists, one more of a artist who designs and draws the illustrations for her husband's papers, but she's a scientist in her own right. And we go into women in science just as a topic and the prejudice against them and how they're disrespected. And my blood was boiling for many of these scenes. And I wanted to put the book down and never pick it up again for how angry I was getting. But that was the purpose of that in the story. So you have these two scientists and they are working to create life. We have a descendant of Victor Frankenstein, and they, instead of bringing a person back to life, want to bring back one of these prehistoric dinosaurs. Correction, because it might not technically be a dinosaur. I think it has its own subclass altogether. But besides the point, prehistoric reptile, bringing it back to life, mostly to determine how it walks and stands, because they want to get in an argument with this other person who says it's like this currently alive individual, and this one's like, no, the bones don't line up this way, and we think it does this. And they're just arguing about how this prehistoric reptile used to live and exist and walk and move in water, land, whatever. So they are trying to bring it back to life, and this dives heavy into the scientific method, into the history of microbiology. Back in the day when they didn't know for sure if like life could arrive from non-living matter or not. And oh, I love the focus on science and the history and love of history that was put into this, bringing up names of like classic microbiologists that I really only know from high school biology class, I'm actually pretty sure. Besides the point. The scientific method, experimentations, trial and error, and just building upon others' research that came before you. I love the focus of science in this book. It is wonderful. But my God, is it slow, because I just wanted to get to I'm going to call it a dinosaur. I wanted to get to the dinosaur. Bring the dinosaur to life and let's see what happens. That is what I wanted. But it took so long and so many failed experiments and so many rats and other animals. And they're like, where do we get a dolphin heart or something like that, or body? And it's just, it was a long time coming. And then you have the drama of gambling debt, and then we go into grief of the loss of a child, as well as what she wanted to be as a mother and what she feels she's lost. Did she want it? Then you have, there's a very subtle like sprinkling of sapphic elements, but then we go into like emotional cheating, and I'm like, I'm not all for that. I don't like that in a book, so I do have some complaints. It was very slow, and then those little sprinkle of elements, specifically emotional cheating. Not a fan, but I did really enjoy this book, so I do recommend it. Just know it is a freakishly slow-paced book. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's mentioned at the end that this was originally a short story for a class in university, which was then expanded upon to become a full-length novel. I would have loved to read the actual just short story, just condense all this into the short story. Would have loved that. All right, I apologize if the camera's moved. The cat keeps attacking the camera. I'm not refilming. Next, we have Frankenstein in Baghdad. I adore so very much the themes and ideas and message of this story, so very much. I just hate it reading the actual text. So, essentially, Frankenstein Baghdad lacks a strong character focus and a narrative that with an action driving the story forward, which are two things I need to be invested and entertained while reading. It's not just enough for strong themes and ideas. I need a narrative story, plot, or characters to tie them onto. And I did not get invested in either thing for this story. It is very heavily a community base. So while there is a Frankenstein's monster, no Frankenstein, but there is a monster that is made up of a bunch of body parts. They are not the focus of the story, and instead we focus on like a religious mother, a pawnbroker, a junk dealer, someone buying properties, corrupt police, a reporter, and so many characters all intertwined together and affecting each other's lives in different ways. You have people fleeing Baghdad as it's in the middle of war. You get focus on this vacuum of power that's currently happening with the American armies and them coming in. And there's so much there that's happening, but we don't dive into any one specific. So we get a understanding of all these characters and how they relate to each other, but not to the depth that I need to really be invested in these characters. And then the monster that it has been created, how it was created is kind of just glossed over. But they are made of all individual peoples and victims of like bombings and stuff like that put together so they could hopefully be laid to rest, only for a soul to be put into this body, and they feel like they have to get justice for each individual body part of the person that made them up. So if they were, just as an example, if they were made of like 10 different body pieces, they gotta get revenge or justice for 10 different people so they could rest in peace. But then I don't want to go into spoilers, so we're going to avoid that. But then other things are happening, and you go into what is justice, who is really innocent, or what they're doing really right. And if that was a stronger focus of the story, I would have adored it. But it's like they were a background character in this book, just acting in the distance while we're also focusing on just living here during this war in a town caught between the conflicts and people just trying to go about their daily lives. But then you have the casual mention of car bombings like every other day, and the devastation that they have, and they don't know if they should flee their home that they've been in all their life or stay and wait all this out. And it is such a good story, but I just wasn't entertained while reading it. And not everyone needs to be entertained when reading. I read for fun, so I like a entertaining narrative. But especially the themes of vacuum of power and the innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. I really enjoyed this. And again, the strong focus on community is a plus. This book just wasn't for me. And next we have Unwieldy Creatures. Oh, I will do nothing but sing this book's praises because it was a delight. This is going to be my favorite book of the year, without question. I am positive of it. From the writing to the characters, character decisions, the plot, their motivations, everything was perfect and flawless, zero complaints. And this was the Frankenstein retelling that I was looking for, paying homage to the original in certain plot details while expanding upon it, putting its own twist on it, diving into the idea of Frankenstein's monster in a sense, but in a realistic way, using a vitro fertilization, but a different version of it where you're not using the egg and sperm, you're using different cells to create like more of an artificial egg and sperm, more or less, so it doesn't even need to be from a man and a woman. It can be like literally from anyone, and it's a whole thing that's dove into. And then making it feel real, like this feels like it could happen. And I adore everything about this book. I love the characters, and I hate the characters. The main character that we follow starting off goes by Z, and the respect I have for them, followed by my hatred and despise of them, but they're making terrible, selfish decisions in the pursuit of science and what they feel is right, and their own internal biases and prejudice, while at the same time, I understand them so well. I understand why they're making these terrible decisions. And then you have the quote-unquote monster who makes terrible, horrible decisions similar to the monster in original Frankenstein, but you understand them. You see their intelligence, what they want. They just want a family and love. And they were denied that from infancy. And then you have other characters. We have trans representation. We have non-binary representation. We go into what it means, like different cultures, your cultural knowledge and family, and what it means to your identity and who you are. And I love this book. I don't want to spoil what happens in it just know that, in my opinion, this book is flawless. It dragged me out of like my reading slump without issue. I started this book, I was immersed, and I could not stop. Highly recommend this book. And we finish off my Frankenstein retelling with essentially Frankenstein, but illustrated by Junji Ito. Now, I adore, obviously, the original Frankenstein. However, something was lost without Mary Shelley's writing. I feel like there was not enough descriptions of trees and walk through natures and diving into depression, only to be like, a walk through nature will fix everything. Though there was a moment in here where he's walking through the forest and it's just like, oh, beautiful. But no, you have Junji Ito's style of design. The monster especially is horrifying looking and an absolute delight. This did almost read more like a Spark Notes retelling of the story. It was very bare bones from what I remember of the original, but no genuine complaints. The art is perfect. He took some liberties with the ending especially, but I really did love this one. I did enjoy it. I don't know what I would have wanted. I think I would have wanted him to start off with being very faithful in adaptation, and then, because considering he went and did his own thing near the end anyway, I would have wanted that more expanded on. It really felt like everything just started and stopped very abruptly and was a little too fast-paced. I would have wanted a little bit more from it, because I can't really... I will recommend it for Junji Ito fans, just it's a good story by him if you're a fan, but not really to Frankenstein fans. Might be the best way to put it. But definitely do recommend. So those are the Frankenstein adaptations, sort of, that I read recently. Let me know if you got any recommendations. There's a couple more that I know fall into the Frankenstein retelling vibe that I need to get to. But that's all I got for now. I will talk to you later. Bye. Must you interrupt? I prefer to film when you're asleep. Lay down. No, lay down. It's not playtime. We will play later. Can I do this one video? I don't trust you there. Leave Luffy alone. Leave Luffy alone. Leave Luffy alone.